So, what spurred this on? Two things. We're talking about my server update here. One was everything was loading so slow from the server, like Nextcloud, Lemmy. I don't even know like even Matrix I was having problems with, and the Jitsi was running real weird, and all this stuff. So I tried to track down the program or the problem. I've got, I got it open here now. I think I've got like 15 Linux containers, each one running a service, and about 5 VMs. And they're nothing's like really CPU intensive or anything. And I looked, and what it was my I/O, disk I/O, was just always 20, 30%, which it should be below 1%. It should be 0 point something, And so that was one impetus for this upgrade. The next was there was a message every time I opened Proxmox, which is a hypervisor, which is what I use to host everything on the server, that my version of Proxmox will stop receiving updates at the end of July, because I was on 7 and they're on 8. So, okay, I thought, well, I need to update Proxmox anyway. So I'll research and figure out why, because I'm using SSDs for storage, why it's so slow. And I started looking in the Proxmox forums, and apparently consumer-grade SSDs, which I was using, suck for hypervisors. Like, I just thought SSDs are SSDs, but they're really not. And they weren't bad. They were crucial. I mean not crucial. No, they were crucial, I think. Yeah. Well, I still got them. Yeah, they're crucial. And they were decent. They weren't bottom tier, but they were consumer grade. And what the difference is between consumer grade and what they call enterprise grade SSDs is enterprise SSDs have something called power loss protection, which means if they can run for a few seconds without power, but it also means that they can cache sync writes in the DRAM cache. So this gives you much faster write performance because you're running everything to DRAM first instead of just the SSD. And there's different grades of enterprise too. But another thing is the NAND chips that they use to create the storage. There's different grades of those. I think mine were using SLC or something like that, a low grade, which is made for consumer SSDs. When high grade enterprise use like a TLC or a QLC. I think Samsung uses QLC and Intel's TLC, but so the NAND chips make a big difference too. So I had 3 SSDs, 2 4 terabytes and 1 2 terabyte in a LVM group, which just means logical volume manager, and it's kind of like a software RAID. Not really RAID, but it just groups all your disks together to make it seem like you got one disk. So I had about 10 terabytes of drives in an LVM group, all formatted as XT4, and which didn't give me compression either. And that means that they fill up and nothing's really compressed. And so I took those out and I looked on eBay, and from the forums, I wish I'd known all this stuff when I first made the server, but the forums say Intel and Samsung make good enterprise SSDs. And Intel quit making, they sold off their storage department actually to, I can't remember. You may know Lovecraft. You're in IT too. Hygalinks or something like that. Anyway.
Hynix? Hynix?
Yes,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, they're a memory manufacturer, yeah.
Yeah, so they bought Intel's storage department, but you could still buy Intel SSDs, enterprise grade, used, And so I found some on eBay, And I was kind of worried about buying used SSDs, but I thought, well, if they're bad, I can hopefully get my money back or whatever. So I bought them, and I bought they're 3.84 terabytes a piece. There's two of them, and he wanted 290 a piece for them, and so or make me an offer, and the model number is D3-S4610, and so I offered him 270 a piece, and he took it. It's actually a pretty big reseller of server equipment on eBay, and so he shipped them out to me, and I plugged those in, and then also there was another suggestion was that you run your OS on a separate drive in your SSD than your storage for your VMs and containers, which I was doing already, but they said make sure the drive you use has DRAM on it. The SSD or the NVMe drive you have has DRAM on it. So I had to find one that had DRAM on it, and also under provision the disk, which basically only partitioned about 2/3 of the disk, because the rest of the empty space the SSD controller uses as wear leveling, which it's kind of needs to do that to make sure the disk runs efficiently and stuff. So my previous NVMe was 256 gigabytes that I run the OS on, and sometimes I store stuff, backups, quick backups and stuff on that, and also ISOs of distributions I put on there that I'm going to load for my virtual machines and my Linux containers. And I was told upgrade your NVMe to one with DRAM, and also you'll probably want a bigger one. That way you only provision about 2/3 of it and use the rest for. So I upgraded that to 500 gigabytes, and that was a T500 Crucial, I think, and that one was about $70 from Micro Center. And so I bought that, and that's what I installed. At first I did a block discard on it, just destroyed everything on it, which I discovered you can't do via USB. You have to have like a SATA controller or a M.2 controller or whatever, to do that. So I had to, the only computer I really had that had that connection in it was the main server. So I took out the old drive and put the new one in there, and then I ran a block discard, BLK discard on it, and that is a not a smart function, a trim function of modern SSDs. And that just kind of wipes everything, gets rid of everything. And then during the installation, I went ahead and installed Proxmox anew. And during the installation, it gives you an option to only use part of the disk that you're installing your OS on. So that's what I did. So I only partitioned about 2/3 of it, which I still had. That's plenty of space on a 500 gigabyte drive for the OS and for anything else I need. So those are the two main things that I did. Everything else is the same. And I replaced the drives. And also, instead of doing just regular LVM XT4, I did a ZFS, used the ZFS file system for the drives. And what that did was gave me a lot of extra capabilities, like caching and stuff like that. ZFS uses something called ARC, A-R-C, which is the type of RAM caching. So what it does is it uses all the RAM your system has, kind of like modern OSs do when or if you look at your phone's RAM, it looks like it's taking all the RAM, but it's just the OS. It does that, but it'll release the RAM as your system needs it. But it uses that to cache data into RAM, into memory. Memcache, they call it. ARC is memcache. And so it uses that. And also, you can use compression in ZFS. You can pick the type of compression. They suggested LZW, so I chose LZW. So I have on those disks, which I chose RAID 0, which if a disk goes out, then the whole array goes out. But I'm not worried about it because I've got everything backed up to a backup server. Every day it does a backup. But all in all, my Linux containers and VMs, those are probably I'd say 4 terabytes of actual storage, but because of compression, it only takes up 2.81 terabytes, and I've got 7.52 terabytes total. So I've got plenty of extra room for more VMs and storage and things like that. And actually, before, my CPU was barely being used because the drives were always, or the CPU was always waiting on the drives to respond before it could process data. And that's what the high I/O delay was waiting on the SSDs to respond. So my CPU was hardly being used. It was just being bottle fed, basically, like drip fed from the SSDs. But now it's actually being used. The CPU is, and since the I/O delay is no longer an issue, and like everything is just super fast. Like Lemmy opens super fast. I use Bitwarden for my passwords. Mastodon, Nextcloud, all that stuff. Just instant pop up. And that's all because of those 2 things I did with the server. And then I installed the new Proxmox virtual environment. I think I'm on 8.22 now. So that's how my server upgrade went. So if I had known all this stuff in the beginning, instead of spending money on consumer SSDs for this, I would have just gone ahead and got the enterprise SSDs and the OS drive with DRAM on it. And I think that would have saved me a lot of money and a lot of headaches and stuff because everything's running great now. The server's super snappy.